Will PSO die? This shield chat.
Good time over the holidays, but now that those are over and we are into 2023, I think a lot of us have been wondering what's in store for PSO2 NGS. For me, all I've seen lately from others has either been doom posting saying that the game will die this year,
I
or
don't
the
think it will
opposite,
now.
with people just saying no matter what Sega does or whatever games come out, it will survive. Well, today I wanted to give you the information to come up.
Because real quick on this, so like, I'm in the camp when it comes to NGS. Obviously content starting to move a little more faster. Maybe because of Sonic being done. Maybe it just happenstance that we're moving from a 6-month schedule to a 5-month schedule. Just saying, a little suspicious about Sonic. But with that being said, though, I think Sega have proven with Bait PSO that they are willing to keep a live service around for almost a decade instead of like closing it down quick like they did with PSU. Because PSU only lasted what, like 3 years, 4 years, something like that. I feel like it was just healed and gone in like a blink of an eye. So I honestly don't think NGS gonna die anytime soon. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I could see it being on the way to Dodo in the next like 3 to 4. I don't think it's gonna die this year. I think the biggest thing about PSO is I feel like this shield, any of it not gonna die. I feel like this shield, which, you know, I have seen it beforehand with like my number. I have seen it, you know, looking at other content creator number, just looking in general. Like I've talked about where like the Great Hawa was the PlayStation version. So without NGS come to, you know, they put up the streaming version global, which they probably won't because, you know, Asura and whatnot. But if Nintendo make a new console in the next year or two, because like I said, we will hear rumor this year, we probably will see it beginning of next year for whatever Nintendo doing next. If it's strong enough to just have NGS as NGS without streaming, then that will be like the Great Hawa. But once again, that come back into like, will anyone care about the Nintendo, you know, console? Because, you know, we have seen it with Nintendo console always. It seemed to be like one console it loved, net console everybody forgets about. Such as, you know, the Wii to the Wii U and whatnot. Will they have that Hawa? Because I honestly at that point kind of doubt it. But with that being said, I still feel like at that point the player base is gonna grow a little bit, but nothing too drastic. You know, it's gonna be like the distance in between, you know, losing 1,000, getting like 1.5 back, lose 500, get 600 back. You know, it's gonna be like one of them relationships. So I foresee NGS, depending on how the rest of the year will go beyond, you know, the next 6 months, I feel like we are hitting a point where NGS is obviously gonna start stagnating elite number wise. Which in return doesn't mean it's gonna die. It might live in a very like healthy number, or, you know, Sega might, if not already, you know, maybe we'll start floating around some like, you know, some early pre-production on whatever the next game is. But with that being said, I still feel like PSO Elite New Genesis is going to Elite make it probably at least another 3 bell minimum, 5 at most.
Up to your own conclusion on if you'll be sticking with NGS. So last headline, we were shown the roadmap for the first half of 2023, detailing what we should be getting up until the month of June. I would say most of you would agree that there are some interesting points on here, such as the Colossal Boss Urgent Quest, the new class Gunblade, as well as the NGS Ultra Evolution update on whatever that entails. But when you look at last year's roadmap, it kind of lacks in comparison. There's way more going on here with each month. Way more bullet points and like level increases, hiring sectors and features that...
I think that probably got more to do with last year literally being early access. I feel like this right now, like the distance between launch and early access, like roadmap, appeal to like, hey, we are very close to 1.0, you know, release.
Not have. However, I think there is more to what meets the eye with this roadmap. So for this, I want to go each month one by one and extrapolate or predict what will be coming with 2023. First off, we have January itself. It's not shown on this year's roadmap, but we were already told what we would be receiving in that same headline we got this roadmap in. We will be going through the same seasonal events such as the New Year's,
Yeah.
as well as the winter event, but near the end on January 25th, we'll actually be receiving a larger update. In this, a new combat zone will be added to Stia called the Nuisance Plant. It will be mechanically different from previous ones because of a multitude of changes, such as different traps and buffs that can be activated, as well as PSC bursts changing some game elements and the enemies themselves. However, with this, it looks like they'll be reusing bosses from other zones, such as Ams, Caveris, and Nex Alio. But we can receive Arms Refiner 2s from enemies inside, which will allow us to limit break our 7 and 8 star equipment to get up to plus 60, which should put those rarities leagues ahead of the previous ones. Unfortunately, though, there was no mention of potential level 5 being included in this. There is more, though. There will.
Yeah, because that whole thing is, that once again go back to the whole thing of like, okay, we got a reason to do that new battle sector, but at the same time, is we get right back to where we was of like, oh, we get more powerful, but what do we do with the power? You know, that is the only issue here. Like, yeah, we're gonna get more powerful, but what now? Now purple triggers are just gonna be a joke, or is there gonna be like content coming later that will be like way more? Because I still want, like, you know, for like a lazy answer, is I still would like to have like a leaderboard system for like all the content. You know, might it be, you know, the pyramid, might it be, you know, cocoons or whatever, and actually give a reward to that. Because, you know, to get more powerful, just to kill a thing faster, to get an item that you need to have to farm all the way back up, that may or may not equal the same amount of strength or very close to it. That's not a lot of motivation there, I feel.
There'll be many episodes for Chapter 4 involving Glenn and Kanui, also some much needed quality of life improvements. But one last thing which was a surprise to me was Sega will be revamping the Geometric Labyrinth. This revamp will be adding matchmaking, buffs for completing side missions, modifiers to make the lab easier, and more. So there's a lot here in just one update, but if you look at all of these changes within one package, you can tell that a lot of this content is using old content.
Yeah.
But before we go crazy about them reusing assets, I think we should look at this from a different perspective.
Which is, let's be honest, like, we're using content stuff, in the case of the lab, very simple, like, you know, structural, such as the whole, like, being the be-all looking bit, is in return easy content to produce that then will give them more time to work on something else. And just the question is, will that something else any matter? You know? That is the question here. Yeah, exactly. Nothing new here. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, it's like, oh, I got bigger numbers now is enough for some. For others, you know, not so much. Because let's be honest, like, NGS at that point is like, there are only two foes here. On one hand, you gain power to gain power, just to gain power, or you got your cosmetic stuff for, you know, your lob. There was nothing really, like, in between that, really. Which is kind of, like, you know, the way, like, 14 have gone with the whole, like, oh, you got your crafting stuff, you got, you know, your Harvard Moon Island thing. You have your triple triad, you have, you know, all the other shit in the Golden Saucer, like, you got your fashion stuff, and, like, you know, NGS just falls into, like, one of two camps of, like, fashion or power for power's sake, you know, and no, like, in between there at all.
It looks like Sega is trying to improve upon the old systems they've given us, not necessarily just throwing reused content at us. They're trying to add things to combat zones to make them more engaging, lowering the barrier to entry for Geometric Labyrinth, and quality of life improvements that even involve alpha reactors from the beginning of the game. So to me, it seems like Sega is paying attention to some problems players have been having with the previous content. It doesn't want to just abandon it, but
yeah, like, a lot of the stuff they are changing here was like, this is something that you for like new players, because the older players are like, don't get me wrong, Night for it too, but, you know, the question is of how much of the content you want to do when, like, example, you already got the high level equipment, you mat level, like, you got no real reason to go to it, which is the only, like, downside, and not counting the whole, will there be, you know, more than, you know, a couple, you know, like 20,000-30,000 people, if that, you know, trying out the game in future months.
But instead wants to adjust the content to make it better. It even said that they started this with the Stia update, A good chunk of players thought that Kvaris had too much empty space, so they made Stia compact but filled with items and enemies such as the Recon Gigants. The story, while still short, has more impact on what is going on and showing us what the characters are capable of. Even the situation with the Khazar weapon was looked at with the new 8-star version Keklophis. It's still a grind to get Infernium, but there are a multitude of ways to get it, and nowhere near as painful as yellow box farming was. With all this combined,
yeah,
it looks
not
like
long.
Sega moving forward will be improving the quality of what they've already tried, while also making higher quality new content. This is probably why the roadmap this time around looks sparse, because they want to have that better quality versus just throwing useless content at the players. With this in mind, let's go.
Yeah, because like the stuff they adding is still getting you to the same gold, which is what in game is or lack thereof. So like all this is good, but they're only gonna help for like so long. Yeah, instead of like, which is probably honestly once again the whole thing I've been saying forever of it feeling very much like an early asset game, and like it becoming better and better, but at the same time is like the main draw like long term I feel for a lot of people is mainly the the fashion game or the money game or the social part of it, but at the same time is like I get technically housing might be, the whole like, hey, we adding to that to add more to the social stuff. Once again, we will have to wait and see like how easy it is to get into people's houses. Is it going to be like Final Fantasy 14? Or is it going to be like invite only type of deal? So I'm curious to see like, where that going to go? But like I said, still missing like the more long-term grind, the long-term like content stuff. That not just going to drive you completely insane like, like the Kaiser stuff, and no like middle steps as you build up to something at all, For example, being like, 14 like Harvest Moon stuff as example, or like the PvP stuff, which in return is like hopefully will get rectified because like they didn't have the issue for say in in bait PSO. This is the main reason why no matter how like every MMO have done it, like the whole reputation system and item systems and whatnot, like no different than any other MMO. It's still like that stuff is in every MMO for like a reason. So yeah, like no matter how much is it helping with content by adding stuff to the content to make it so not nearly as repetitive, it's still not helping like long term, which once again it's still the whole reason why I still say PSO is the game you play every like 3 to 6 months and then you bug off and then come back 3 to 6 months later. Which there's nothing wrong with that. It just I do hope we can get a patent type of stuff soon. Or by soon meaning like by the end of the year. Cause like the building block they are doing and the stuff we do have is such a good building block. It just will Sega do anything, with it beyond the bare minimum and then move on to something totally different.
Continue with the roadmap.
That may or may not matter.
We'll be getting a colossal boss called Dark Falz Aegis, the final fight against the Dark Falz we currently face.
And we're gonna destroy the tower.
There will be some limited time stuff, which to me doesn't really matter much. Last year, though, we got Dark Falz for the first time, but also a lot more, such as a level increase from 35 to 40, higher ranks for Alio, side story for Artem, the Arcs ID, the Mag music feature, but at the last minute as well, not shown on the roadmap, they announced the Nadara concert. So a lot more happened last February, but I would say the stuff happening at the end of January this year is kind of equivalent to that. Regardless if you think the same, Dark Falz, in my opinion, was the best urgent quest we have gotten so far.
I think we all can agree.
I would reckon that Dark Falz Aegis would be just as crazy, with multiple phases, great music, and an epic fight. Also,
yeah, it looked
with the
good.
Original Dark Falz, we received the Schwartz armor, which I would imagine we will be getting more armor with the new version. Not sure about a weapon though, as Synquem was released then, but could be earned outside of Dark Falz with the higher rank Alio zones. For the concert, if they do the same as last year, we may receive a surprise once we draw closer to February, maybe in the next headline on January 31st.
It'd be nice if we got a new console that not that VTuber and have audio that don't sound like it through a tin can. Hell, I still would love they just literally just bring back the console from bait PSO. Just make it a hologram. Hell, it could just be the music video, just like playing on the screen. I don't care. I'd be happy with that. Just like, but hopefully.
However, I
Hopefully
doubt
we
we
get
receive
something.
news of anything else major for February. Moving on to March, there will be the spring event again, but also a new rank for the Geometric Labyrinth. They said that the revamp for this in January is in preparation for this new rank, which leads me to believe that this new rank is a different makeup of what we've had in the past. It'll most likely function the same, but have different enemies, new levels, and hopefully new loot. Honestly,
I think it probably just gonna be like very similar to what we always doing, just in a different region. And who knows, maybe they will bring back the item trade-in that we had. What was that, like 2 or 3 season events ago, where we had that extra currency we trade into the shopkeeper to get stuff. Maybe something like that again. I don't know. Like the limited time tasks that still like, or quests is still don't do much for me because it's like, you don't get that much. And also, I would still love them to be like around all time of the year, just like throwing extra experience or extra season points or something during the event, and then drop it down a little bit afterwards or something of the sort.
if you look beyond the problems with getting a party
That way we
together
have more
for
stuff to
Geolab
do,
in the past,
no matter how
the biggest
it's
drawback
samey.
was the loot itself. It was definitely not worth the time sink for going through the entirety of the quest, only to
The
receive
loots are
trio
always the
augments,
problem.
which weren't even good at the time this released. Another stinger was going for the more difficult modifiers, which didn't properly reward you either, and only gave you more of these garbage augments.
Yeah, it
So
just
if
made
someone
it pointless.
wants this quest to be played, I think they need to heavily adjust the reward system for it to match the time spent and the difficulty that you give it.
Which I don't think Sega gonna do. Let's be honest. We're gonna get, but it could be the same as that. We're gonna get something that on par Warsaw, or just gonna be reprints of the same stuff we have seen for the last, like, going on 3 years.
That's essentially it for March, but getting into April and May
Or 2
gets
years,
all
however
jumbled
long.
up. First off, the 2022 roadmap ended up different than what was shown. April got high rank Retem, level 45, Geolab, and Photo Room like it should have, but also stole the PAs and compound techs from May, as well as getting a PSC Encores and other quality of life features. And then May was completely different. Got the first anniversary event, captains, as well as that mining rig Retem that was supposed to be for April. So this made April a huge month for updates, and May was just pretty much like another seasonal event month. But 2023 gets a little ambiguous on what will be in April, and we'll end up in May.
Yeah, because it kept
They
Bonnie
switched
months
things
now.
around last year, and something's probably going on in that time period within Sega itself, but I think we can figure out what it'll end up being. April will most likely have the new gunblade class and weapon in the first half of the second anniversary event. May will most likely have the second half of that event and chapter 5 of the story. But I think there will be more than what was shown in these months, since we had so much last year. Within these months, I expect another slew of quality of life changes, most
More mining wig, chat. All the mining wigs.
likely in April. For Chapter 5, we know it won't be another region, and since it is earlier than the usual timeline for major updates, I think it'll be smaller than what we have seen before. I believe Chapter 5 will be a conclusion to what we've had here on Halfa, or at least this island. Something akin to going to the floating island above Halfa Lake, and or revisiting each of the different regions. Honestly, the Chapter 5 point is the biggest mystery to me, since it is not included in a major update like usual. Speaking of a major update, we will once again be getting one in June, tentatively called the NGS Ultra Evolution Update. Some people are saying this is the Realm Reborn update for NGS, others are saying this will be nothing. Well, Hero Rai pretty much sums up what the update will be in the headline itself.
Finally, we're planning a major update for June in a whole new format that will diverge from previous region releases, tentatively called the NGS Ultra Evolution Update. Key content in this update includes the implementation of the creative space, additional class skills, and a level cap increase to 75.
He said that the
Yeah, cause the whole thing is about this, though, is like, this is still like one of them things that is like so vague. Because it's like, adding new quack guild or whatever, it kind of come with the territory since we do got, a few extra points. Which mean maybe that means we're gonna be able to get higher, like more points by doing like the cocoon at a higher setting, maybe? And then like the whole Quater Fate stuff is good, but like at the same time, it's like I don't think that end up to like change everything. Other than like maybe starting to like lean more into content made by the players. Which in return, I get Bait PSO technically did that with the whole like custom PAs and stuff you can make, through crafting. But like other than that, in the level 75 cap, and like if we jump into 75 in June, without they gonna start giving us like what I want, like ideally, like you start spreading content out to the 4 regions. In the back of my head, I can't help but think like all they're gonna do is just like add probably like what rank 3 or 4 to Athea zones, and maybe a rank 2 to like Yellow Trigger, and then we hit 75 in like a minute and a half, like we did with Yellow Triggers in Athea. So yeah, like I on one hand, I hope there's more to this and they are giving it a fancy name, but at the same time, is like I feel like this is one of them things that like you could get your hopes up easily to just be disappointed, because it's like on like one hand, with like Sega putting out like half-quated content that they will then add up, that probably should be in there like day one for said content like 6 months later, such as being able to see what music you have with it as an example of that, or being able to use multiple scrap tickets items or etchy tickets. Another example though. I could see that being nothing more than just like that. Which in return is like I'm expecting to be very much the same, because that kind of how Sega roll in a lot of ways. Like half steps, or like common sense stuff, or just like reusing whatever. But then again, maybe they always fall into it, maybe just because of creative bases, and like maybe trying to lean more into the creative side of the player base. Might it be since, let's be honest, like the player base is very much all about making content, such as like the screenshot community, of course all the outfit, the cosmetic stuff. Now we're gonna have houses to be made, and obviously, as we saw with the giant wappy, you can make stuff that not just houses. So I wonder how much of that is gonna be like Sega just leaning more into that and let player create content while they are off doing whatever Sega gonna be doing for the rest of that year, or this year, I should say. I don't want to get my hopes up too much, because it could just be nothing more than weekends and wanks and, that like, yeah.
These are the key content to this update. Essentially meaning that these are the highlights
Especially
of the major
what you're
points of
talking
this
about.
update itself. I think this is just further reinforced by the update's name, Ultra Evolution. If we look back at when they announced Creative Spaces, they said, it is personal quarters evolved. So I think the namesake currently comes from this line. However, if we think back on what
I
I said
agree on
earlier,
that.
Sega is focusing on improving the quality of what they already have and bringing in higher quality new content. This is also hinted at with what Hiro says in the headline too.
The June update also includes plans for new content and enhanced features in addition to what we announced today. We hope to be able to share more details at a later date.
So there is proof they'll go beyond these bullet points. But for what will actually happen in June, for us to be honest, I think the update may end up being a rehash of Alpha itself, where everything will get a new rank to be adequate for the new level cap, similar to what we have seen before last October. But I think more things will change as well. Previous content may be evolved or improved to meet the new standards, and then for the new content,
also known as maybe like a complete rework to the drop system. That'd be nice. Or maybe random generated roguelike dungeons like Bait PSO would also be nice. But hell, I like at that point I would take literally a loot table adjustment with also more transparency when it comes to what come from where, without having to deal with data miners or like half-assed up that may or may not be a mid-translation. Or, chain literally 5 minutes before, or 5 minutes after the headline stream, as we have seen with some stuff.
I don't know for a fact what it will be, but I think it will be finally worthy of being called endgame content or introduce some sort of endgame loop. The reason why I say this is because for base game or classic PSO2, level 75 was a huge milestone for content like that, and Sega loves following patterns. Beyond those things, there might be new systems added like how they always do with a major update. With Caveris, Sega introduced the Treasure Shop, Auto Cell, Alliance Quest, the Quest Counter, and more beyond that. But with all those things, do I think this will be on the same level as Realm Reborn for Final Fantasy XIV? Definitely not. At least not all at once. But I think it is a good sign that Sega is finally realizing that
I think it's not more than like a fancy naming scheme for technically 1.0.
That they can't just push out garbage and expect players to just want to play it. Hopefully this carries through the rest of the year as well, otherwise I think it will be all for nothing. So what will the rest of 2023 look like? With this evolution, it may be different than usual, but I still want to make some educated guesses based on what they've done before, because like I said, Sega loves following patterns. And starting with July, I think they're going to do just that. So with this, they've always celebrated the PSO2 anniversary, the 9th, and then the 10th last year. So with this, I think they're going to do the same thing with the 11th anniversary, have some sort of seasonal event, give out some goodies to the player base, and that's just going to be it. But with August, I think that's going to be a major month for updates, as always. Both of the times they've had a class, I think like Braver one time and then Waker the other, but I think this time they're not going to add it since Gunblade is being added earlier in the year. But with this, they might add some other sort of change with classes, might add some additional class skills, PAs, techniques, that kind of thing.
It'd be nice to have more
PAs.
They've
always added a new mode as well during this month. The mining rig the first time, and then Cannonball Rumble the second. So we might see some sort of new mode along the lines here. They've always added side stories or mini episodes as well during this month, some more story in terms of the NPCs. And then also they've had quality of life changes around here as well. Then we have September, which is another seasonal event month, but this time they've always added an additional thing to an existing mode. So the first time was
hopefully
more
we will
races,
not get more wasted.
The second time they added Cannonball Strike to the kind of Cannonball Rumble mode. So I think they're going to add
or
to
give a
this
close
new mode that
circuit.
might be in August, or I guess add more field races if they don't add this new mode here. But then for October, it's going to be another major month for updates. So in the past, they've added Battle Diaz here or Ordinal Tower. So I think there will be another dungeon-like thing here. And then there are other features.
I hope if we don't get in like June, like hopefully that will be the roguelike stuff from PSO2 inside of NGS.
They've done triggers here, mission pass, special scratch, so some sort of like system, not necessarily like a mode itself. But then there'll also be quality of life changes here too. Then with November, it'll be another seasonal event, blah, blah, blah. But they've always done a collab scratch here. So the first time they did the Attack on Titan, but that was kind of like with PSO2 base game. But then they've also done the Overlord scratch. So there might be another collab scratch here if this is kind of like a common theme. And then with the last month in December, it's going to be like another major expansion. My hope is like a new planet or maybe even a new island. Get away from Halpha. Let's get out of here. Let's do something new. And then probably like level 80 increase, maybe even more than that. Kind of just like an approximation. That would be new features kind of tied to that, just as always with a major update.
Yeah, I kind of agree with the planet thing, because like if we do have Jet filling out Hopper for 2023, I'd be totally fine for December being like, hey, it's time to go, you know? That way, you know, we start the new year on like a brand new cycle outside of what would be quote-unquote 1.0.
So there you have it, all of 2023 for NGS. I highly doubt that this will be 100% accurate, but honestly, that's okay. Nobody's perfect. And I'm kind of hoping that I'm wrong anyways, and Sega does way more than that, but we will see. If I was to give any advice directly to Sega though, moving forward, it would be for them to keep 3 things in mind. First is make fun content. I know that's kind of vague, but basically something that I like playing and want to go back to over and over again, invite my friends, etc. But also don't make it FOMO content or fear of missing out, like the seasonal events and other limited time things. Honestly, I think
it could like the game is lacking content. Make the content stay around. If anything, just give boosted during certain time to motivate people to do the content. And then hopefully hook them so they will continue doing the content. Might it be because it's fun, or might it be we might actually get something that not just a 2-star weapon like every other one of these.
All of these limited time things is way too much. If you look at previous roadmaps, literally half of the content is limited, and then it is gone, or you have
Yep.
to wait until next year where it may be different. But unfortunately,
Yep.
with the gaming industry
What
as a
I have
whole,
complained
I
about
think they're
before,
all
just now
going
we were
towards this
complaining
trend
about
and
it.
trying to tap onto that emotion of fear, as it's a pretty good tactic, so I can't really blame them. I think at some point, though, people will just get sick of it, and I think Sega's kind of getting to that point
I'm
where they're
already
just pushing that
sick
button
of
way
it.
too much, because they have like the AC scratches, seasonal events, mission pass, and more beyond that. That's just like too much going on. Moving on to my second point is make fulfilling content. Honestly, this kind of ties in with the fun content, at least for me. When something's fulfilling, I like doing it. But also with this, there's kind of two sides of the coin. So for the one side, it's don't make things so like time consuming. It feels like it's a waste of time, relies too much on RNG for the
Or if you, which my whole thing, if you're gonna make something time consuming, make sure you have multiple ways to do it. So if one thing is not to your liking, you have a backup option. Because bottlenecking people into doing it one specific way, such as Kaiser, is not good. Because that is how you burn out your player base. And you have people that never want to do it, let alone have any desire to even do it for the fourth time, just because they see how much of a burnout. But by being like, in the case of like example being with Ephemium Quito, I'm once again probably butchering that, like having it tied to like, oh, you got some in Origin Quest, you got some from the shop, you can mine them from, you know, Gigantic. Like, give up multiple way to get it up. Actually make it tied to stuff that is actually fun.
the reward drops, kind of like Geometric Labyrinth, but maybe they're revamping that now. But then on the other side of the coin, it's making things too generous. Kind of like with the lower level ordinal tower ranks, where you're getting armor that's like level 60 when you're doing a level 20 rank. That doesn't really make sense to me. And then for the seasonal events, albeit they're generous and can be, you know, nice for like upgrading and stuff, I feel like they go like too hard with that, like giving all of the Infernium needed for a fixed attack 3 Cacophis, like just a few weeks ahead of the Stia release. Like it just happened. So just like it just spits on the people that like just earned that with farming all of the Infernium, and now you're just basically shoving it to everyone for free, pretty much.
Yeah, like, I agree with this, and like, and knowing that they do this is the reason why I didn't go ham on farming it beyond, you know, the 30, just so we could learn how the drop weight
But
worked.
just seasonal points. Honestly, I don't think that's the worst of it though. Like next week, I think with the winter events, they'll be handing out Mastery 4s as well as Gigas 4s and 10 of each of those for just a few seasonal points, which just kind of baffles me because like getting Gigas 4s can be difficult. You need to be the current max level to earn them. And then for Mastery 4s, it like relies on captains or getting a whole bunch of different like
This is the
mastery
type of
capsules from
like,
before. So I think it just like kind
like,
of squashes like any previous like I don't know trying to earn these.
yeah, because it just literally does it. Like, why would you farm the stuff? Why would you upgrade the stuff when they just can give it to you for free like 9 months later? Which is like, this is the other whole point. Like, literally outside of pulling your credit card out, your only content you have to do is to become stronger. But why farm hundreds and thousands an hour to come, you know, better if they're just gonna give it to you? Like, you know, it kind of just like eating away any in game, let's be honest. Outside credit card, NGS don't have in game.
So it just like makes you feel bad if you tried before when people are just getting it for free. So it's like, why did I do it before instead of just waiting like everybody else? When I talk about this stuff here, I'm not blaming any of the players for taking advantage of these events, because I mean, I do. It's like, why wouldn't you grab the items that are there? But I think Sega's actually hurting their own player base by doing this, because it reduces like how many players are going to be playing in other times. It's like,
And also, yeah, that the other whole thing of just like, you know, instead of playing the game time-wide, you hop in for 5 minutes, grab the item, and bounce. Have been proven many times over, is if you don't have the player base in the game, playing the game as much as possible, eventually the game itself going to start feeling and looking more deader than it already is. And outside of a very select few, the whales that been, you know, thousands upon thousands of dollars, as long as, you know, they're not in the whole sunk cost fallacy. But for the ones that not in that camp, eventually, you know, it would hit a point of like, why spend the money because no one around, you know? Yeah, that whole like, if the game looked dead, and if it's not dead, there's no motivation to, you know, invest in the game beyond, you know, the dopamine hit of like the casino shit. And it's just like, eventually that gonna come back and bite them in the ass. Well, like the whales are just gonna stop spending money because why would they? Because, you know, if they are in the camp where they all just spending the money to look as cool as possible and they got no one to impress, why would they spend the money?
Why would I play before or at the release of this thing when I know a couple weeks or like a month down the line there's just gonna be something better or just like easier than before? So I think to give a definite answer to this, I think you can versus just the fun content, since that's kind of like different from person to person. I think they should focus more on content that's kind of like the item exchanges, the Khazar and Kaklofis weapons, the augment capsule exchange, more things like that where you're doing content in the game, but you feel like you can get guaranteed rewards over time. I think a great system that was from base game was using badges. We have these end mission badges that we just have sitting around or only can use with special scratches. I feel like taking advantage.
Yeah, like even then, like we have them. We have had them since launch, and you can't use them. I guess you could trade in for one or two items, but it's been the same item since launch. And it's just like I've talked about before, like give up the like break down lower level equipment into material that we didn't trade to an NPC to get like, you know, like AC item from like a year ago or something. Like that would go like so much farther on that.
Advantage of these would be huge. Or just adding more badges into the game, kind of like weapon badges from base game as well. But now for my last point that I think Sega should consider is to add more variety to NGS itself. So it should have more variety in terms of the combat, it should have even things that are non-combative too, kind of just like how base game was. There was like the casino, there was the fishing and the mining, like actually doing that instead of just like picking things off the ground.
Crafting.
And then with combat, there was challenging quests, ultimate quests, buster quests, PvP, and more beyond that.
PvP
and I think
for the win,
eventually NGS will get there, but it just seems like we're so far off from having like decent variety. All I'm doing is like purple triggers all the time.
We like 3 to 5 out.
Quests on occasion if I like feel like it. And like, I don't know, there isn't really much beyond that in terms of doing like some end game content. And I feel like NGS
credit card chat. I'll remember credit card.
Really needs it. I do know that they're doing the, you know, the creative spaces. We've talked about that earlier. So with that, like that's kind of like a step in the direction of having like a non-combat thing to do. But I think they needed to add more like that as well as combat things too. But I think if Sega manages to do all of these things as well as keep with their current roadmap with improving the current features, I think NGS will be just fine. Let me know what you guys think of all of this in the comments down below, and be sure to subscribe for more NGS content like this one.
Yeah, I agree with Cato. Like, I agree 100% with him on this. Like I'm happy he took the time to go through like all the headline pairing them to each other, but yeah, 100% on this, because hopefully in the long term, you know, we will start getting the variety. I don't know. I feel like a lot of this stuff is like years out. Like between all the quality of life stuff that should have been there months ago, which, you know, I'm not gonna argue, at least it's coming. You know, it just feels like right now, like NGS has just got a lot of like busy work and a lot of ground to cover. And a lot of the ground they are covering is stuff that not gonna help the game long term. Yeah, like a lot of the stuff that being added, like, should have probably been there in the fourth, like, you know, year or so. Which is still not helping my idea of, you know, all the budget got boiled on just getting into what with baits. We will see. Hopefully this coming year will be better for NGS. I would love to wrap up the year being like, yeah, they came absolutely worth playing, like long term or short term or anywhere in between. And hopefully it won't just end up being another year of doing the same thing we were doing in the quote beta or the Japanese quote beta. We still doing to this day, just in a different, you know, coat of paint. Here hoping that 2023 will be better for NGS.
Troy, I have a 200 IQ idea. Fill out an application to become a PSO dev. Lie about your schooling and education. Make up a fake degree and forge some documents. Then you get in there and save the PSO community and become a hero. You're welcome.